Princess Lyra of the Velithians stood on the balcony of the royal palace, looking out over the city of Zirath. The sun of her planet was setting, painting the sky with shades of violet and gold. The city below was quiet, but Lyra could feel the tension in the air. Her people had been at war for generations, fighting neighboring factions for land, resources, and pride. Every day the threat of battle loomed over the city like a shadow that refused to fade. Lyra's mind was heavy with responsibility. At 23, she was one of the youngest rulers in Velithian history, yet she carried the weight of her people's survival on her shoulders. Her advisors had exhausted every diplomatic option. Letters, treaties, and negotiations had failed. The neighboring factions would not bend, and without action, another devastating war was inevitable. Then came the proposal. Earth, a distant human world, had sent an envoy to offer help. Not just diplomatic help, but a personal alliance. The humans proposed a marriage, a union between Lyra and Commander Jaren, a human leader known for his courage, discipline, and strategic brilliance. Lyra had been stunned when she first heard the idea. She had heard stories about humans. Some praised them for their ingenuity. Others warned of their recklessness. They were strange creatures, physically weaker than Velithians but full of strange courage and determination. A human marriage for peace? It seemed almost absurd. Yet when she looked at the situation realistically, she had no other choice. Her council had supported the proposal unanimously. They argued that a union with Jaren could stop the wars, secure trade routes, and bring stability to the planet. Lyra could not deny the logic, though her heart was filled with doubt. Could she marry someone she barely knew, a creature from a world completely unlike hers, just for peace? The ceremony was set. The palace had been decorated with flowers from every corner of Zirath, their petals glimmering under soft lights. Velithian nobles arrived in ornate robes, their faces a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. The humans had arrived in their own ceremonial attire, simple yet dignified. Among them, Jaren stood tall and calm, his posture straight and his eyes steady, surveying the grand hall as if he had been there all his life. When Lyra first saw him, she felt an unexpected stir of surprise. Jaren was not like any human she had imagined. He was strong, yes, but his presence was more than physical. It was a quiet power, a sense of control and confidence that seemed to ripple through the room. He smiled politely at the crowd, his calm expression never faltering even as whispers and curious glances followed him. The ceremony itself was formal and precise. Words of peace and unity were spoken, vows were exchanged, and hands were joined. Lyra felt the weight of her role pressing down on her. She was doing this not for herself but for her people. She could not allow personal feelings to interfere with the greater good. After the ceremony, the reception began. Music played softly and guests mingled, their conversations a mixture of diplomacy and admiration for the union. Lyra observed Jaren quietly. He did not flaunt his status. He moved through the room with ease, shaking hands and acknowledging people respectfully. He asked questions, listened carefully, and responded thoughtfully. There was an intelligence in him that impressed her, a careful consideration of others' words and motives that made him seem far older than his age. Despite her doubts, Lyra could not ignore a growing curiosity about him. She wondered what it would be like to know him beyond this political arrangement. Could a human so different from her people understand the burdens she carried? Could he be more than a tool for peace? Their first night together as a married couple was quiet and formal. In her private chamber, Lyra watched him move with ease, unpacking his belongings with simple efficiency. He did not demand attention, nor did he make her feel uncomfortable. Instead, he spoke calmly, asking about her people, her duties, and her hopes for peace. Lyra found herself answering honestly, surprised by the ease with which she spoke to him. Jaren shared stories of his world, of planets and civilizations she had never imagined. He spoke of human struggles and achievements, their resilience and their willingness to fight for what they believed was right. Lyra listened, fascinated by his perspective. Though they were from different worlds, she began to see glimpses of shared values, honor, courage, and loyalty. The next morning, the first challenge arose. A small group of mercenaries had infiltrated the city outskirts, attempting to test the strength of the new alliance. Lyra's guards were ready, but the threat was bigger than expected. Jaren did not hesitate. He joined the patrol personally, moving with a calm precision that surprised the Velithian soldiers. Lyra watched from a distance as Jaren handled the situation. He was fast, careful, and decisive. He coordinated the soldiers, anticipating enemy movements and neutralized threats with skill that seemed almost unnatural for a human. Lyra's heart raced not with fear but with awe. She had married a human for peace, but now she realized that his presence alone could deter violence. After the skirmish, Lyra approached him cautiously. "You are remarkable," she said softly. Jaren smiled politely, but there was no arrogance in his expression. "I am only doing what is necessary to protect life," he replied. "Your people deserve peace, Princess, and I intend to help ensure it." Lyra nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and unease. She had expected a political ally, not a warrior whose skill could rival her best soldiers. Yet beneath the amazement, a question lingered. Could someone so powerful also be trusted to act with restraint and wisdom? Over the following days, Lyra observed Jaren closely. He trained with her soldiers not to show superiority, but to understand their strengths and weaknesses. He studied their tactics, shared insights from human military history, and suggested improvements that could save lives without escalating conflict. The Velithian Council was skeptical at first, but even they could not deny the results. One evening, as they watched the sunset together from the balcony, Lyra spoke quietly. "I did not know what to expect when I agreed to this marriage," and she admitted. "I thought it would be difficult, that it might be uncomfortable." Jaren turned to her, his expression thoughtful. "Peace is never easy," he said. "It requires compromise, understanding, and sometimes courage that goes beyond fear. We are both here to serve that goal, Princess. Nothing more, nothing less." Lyra studied him, noting the honesty in his words. She felt a spark of respect, perhaps even admiration. This human, whom she had married out of necessity, was proving himself not just capable, but extraordinary. The days turned into weeks. Jaren's influence began to reshape the city subtly. Soldiers trained more effectively, patrols became more organized, and even the citizens began to feel a sense of safety that had been missing for generations. Lyra saw her people begin to trust him, slowly but surely. Yet with every passing day, Lyra felt a growing complexity in her feelings. She admired him, respected him, and unknowingly began to feel a personal connection. This was dangerous. She reminded herself constantly that their union was political first. Personal attachments could cloud judgment, and in a time of fragile peace, judgment must remain clear. One night, as a storm raged outside, Lyra reflected on her situation. She had married a human for the sake of her people. She had expected a formal alliance, perhaps even a cold partnership. Instead, she found herself facing someone who challenged her perceptions, inspired her respect, and even stirred a curiosity she could not ignore. The storm outside mirrored the storm inside her. She was caught between duty and emotion, between the expectations of her people and the undeniable presence of this human beside her. And though she did not yet understand it fully, she sensed that her life, and the life of her planet, would never be the same again. As the night deepened, Lyra looked across the room at Jaren. He was studying a map of the surrounding territories, planning defenses, his brow furrowed in concentration. She realized, with a mix of awe and apprehension, that she had married a man who could change the fate of worlds, not just through diplomacy, but through courage, intelligence, and an almost divine skill in battle. For the first time, she wondered if humans, young as they were in the galactic stage, might be more than allies. Perhaps they were something more, something that could inspire, protect, and even lead civilizations in ways her people had never imagined. And for the first time in her life, Lyra felt a spark of hope. The morning after the first week of their marriage, Lyra awoke to the sound of alarms echoing through the palace. The Velithian city of Xyrath was under attack. At first she froze, fear tightening in her chest, but she quickly reminded herself that panic would not help her people. Jaren was already on his feet, moving through the corridors with swift, decisive steps. Lyra followed him as he went to the balcony overlooking the city. From there she could see the chaos unfolding. Rogue mercenaries had infiltrated the outskirts, setting fires and attacking patrols. Their movements were fast and organized, but they were far outnumbered by Velithian defenders. Lyra's heart raced. She had watched many battles from a distance before, but seeing one unfold so close to the palace, where civilians lived, made it feel different, more urgent, more personal. Jaren turned to her, his expression calm yet focused. "Stay here," he instructed. "Do not engage directly. I need you safe, and the people will follow my orders if you remain a visible leader." Lyra hesitated. She wanted to be out there with the soldiers, helping in any way she could, but she obeyed. Her instincts told her that Jaren's judgment was sound. Even in the first week of knowing him, she had learned that he had an extraordinary ability to assess danger and act accordingly. Within moments, Jaren descended into the city streets, his presence immediately commanding attention. Soldiers straightened, civilians stepped aside, and even some of the mercenaries paused in surprise. Lyra watched almost in disbelief as he moved with a combination of speed, precision, and calm authority. Every step seemed deliberate, every motion calculated. The mercenaries advanced toward a small group of civilians cornered near a market. Jaren raised his voice, not in anger, but in command. "Stop, leave them alone." His words carried across the street like a force. Some of the attackers faltered, unsure of this human who spoke with such authority. But the mercenaries were not easily deterred. One of them drew a weapon and fired. Without hesitation, Jaren moved faster than Lyra could follow. He intercepted the attack with his arm, redirecting the energy harmlessly to the ground. He then disarmed the attacker with a swift motion, using strength and technique that seemed almost superhuman to the Velithian soldiers watching. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. She had heard rumors of human combat skill, but seeing it firsthand was unlike anything she had imagined. Jaren fought not with rage but with precision and care. Every move was purposeful, designed to neutralize threats while minimizing harm. The mercenaries regrouped and tried to flank him. Jaren anticipated their movement before it happened. He directed the Velithian soldiers, giving concise instructions that allowed them to block the attackers' escape routes and protect the civilians. Within minutes, the threat was contained. Several mercenaries were captured and none of the civilians were harmed. Lyra descended to the streets after the skirmish, her heart still pounding. She approached Jaren, who was checking on the soldiers and civilians, ensuring they were safe. "That was incredible," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Jaren turned to her, wiping sweat from his brow. "Incredible?" he asked, his tone calm. "I only did what needed to be done. The people's safety comes first. That is what matters." Lyra studied him closely. There was no arrogance, no desire for praise. Just focus, discipline, and an unwavering sense of duty. She had married him for peace, but she realized that his ability to inspire safety and order went far beyond politics. He was a force, a protector in human form, and perhaps more than that. Over the next few days, Jaren worked tirelessly. He trained Velithian soldiers not by showing off strength, but by teaching them tactics and strategies they had never considered. He combined human ingenuity with Velithian skill, creating formations and defensive techniques that turned ordinary soldiers into an effective force capable of defending against much larger enemies. Lyra observed him, fascinated. The humans were a young species in the galaxy, yet their adaptability and intelligence were remarkable. Jaren's methods were not just about fighting, they were about thinking, anticipating, and outsmarting the enemy. His presence transformed the city's defenses, and Lyra began to see a future where her people might finally know lasting peace. One evening, after another training session, Lyra approached Jaren in the palace courtyard. "You move through battle as if you can see the future," she said, her voice a mix of awe and curiosity. "How do you do it?" Jaren smiled faintly. "I do not see the future," he said. "I study patterns, anticipate decisions, and trust instincts honed by experience. Humans rely on intuition and analysis. It may seem like seeing the future, but it is preparation and awareness combined." Lyra nodded slowly. "And yet it feels like magic to us," she admitted. "We have never seen anyone move with such clarity and control." Jaren looked at her earnestly. "It is not magic. It is choice. I choose to act for what is right, for what will save lives. That choice makes a difference." Lyra felt a shiver run through her. This human, whom she had married out of duty, possessed a power that was more than physical. It was moral, intellectual, and instinctive all at once. She had expected a political alliance, perhaps even a temporary protector. Instead, she had found a man who could change the course of her people's history. The following day, a larger threat appeared. A rival faction, emboldened by the previous skirmish, launched a coordinated attack on the outskirts of the city. They brought advanced weaponry and attempted to bypass the city's defenses. Lyra and the council were terrified. This time the stakes were higher and failure could mean disaster. Jaren stepped forward calmly, surveying the battlefield. "We will not wait to be attacked," he said. "We will strike strategically and protect as many as possible." He organized the defense with remarkable efficiency. Civilians were evacuated, soldiers positioned with calculated precision, and traps set to slow the enemy's advance. He moved among them, adjusting tactics in real time, anticipating enemy actions. When the first wave of attackers reached the city gates, Jaren engaged directly. Lyra watched from a balcony above, her heart pounding. He fought with extraordinary skill, blocking attacks, disarming enemies, and moving with such speed that it was difficult to track. Each motion was purposeful. Each strike minimized unnecessary harm while maximizing effectiveness. The soldiers around him fought better than they ever had before. Jaren's presence inspired them. His calm under pressure, his clarity of thought, and his unwavering courage made them believe they could survive anything. The tide of battle shifted rapidly as the attackers, though numerous, could not break through. After hours of fighting, the enemy was forced to retreat. Lyra descended to the streets once more, witnessing the aftermath. The city had suffered some damage, but the casualties were minimal. Soldiers and civilians alike looked to Jaren with admiration and respect. Lyra felt pride, relief, and a new kind of awe. She approached him as he helped a wounded soldier. I have never seen anyone fight like you," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "It is beyond anything I imagined." Jaren looked at her, his expression softening. "I fight not for glory, princess. I fight so that your people may live another day. That is all." Lyra realized that he was not just strong or skilled, he was disciplined, honorable, and selfless. She had married him to secure peace, but she had discovered a protector, a leader, and a symbol of hope. That night, Lyra could not sleep. She wandered the palace corridors, thinking of the battles she had witnessed, the courage she had seen, and the man she had married. Jaren's strength was not just physical. It was moral and intellectual, a combination that made him formidable in every sense. For the first time, Lyra wondered if humans were underestimated across the galaxy. They were young, yes, but their potential was extraordinary. And standing beside her, this one human, Jaren, was a living proof of that truth. As the city settled under the calm of night, Lyra looked out over Zirath once more. She felt hope, a cautious but real hope for the first time in her life. Perhaps peace was not just a dream. Perhaps with Jaren by her side, she could protect her people and change the course of history. And in that quiet moment, she realized that her marriage, born of necessity, was becoming something far more powerful than she could have imagined. The days after the first battle passed with an uneasy calm. Zirath was rebuilding, and its people were learning to trust the presence of Jaren, the human who had become more than just a political ally. Princess Lyra observed him closely, noticing how he moved through the city, checking on defenses, training soldiers, and speaking with citizens. Every action he took reinforced her growing respect and her cautious admiration. But peace, Lyra knew, was fragile. Rival factions had not forgotten the defeat at the outskirts of the city. They watched and waited, plotting new ways to challenge the Valithians and test the strength of the human alliance. Lyra's counsel warned her constantly. The next attack would not be small, and it could strike anywhere, even inside the palace. One evening, a messenger arrived in a rush, his wings trembling with urgency. "Princess," Commander Jaren, "there is danger. An intruder has been detected near the palace gates." Lyra's heart jumped. The palace was meant to be secure, protected by walls and guards, yet an intruder had slipped through. She immediately looked to Jaren, who was already moving. His calm expression betrayed no fear, only readiness. "Gather the guards and form a perimeter," he ordered, his voice firm but controlled. "I will handle this directly. Princess, stay inside the palace. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary." Lyra obeyed, though a part of her wanted to run into the streets and help. She trusted Jaren, but seeing danger so close made it impossible to remain calm. She watched from a balcony as he descended into the courtyard, blending into the shadows with a fluid grace that left soldiers momentarily stunned. The intruder was a skilled assassin, trained to bypass defenses and strike swiftly. Jaren had anticipated this. He moved silently, his steps precise, his eyes scanning every angle. When the assassin emerged, weapon drawn, Jaren was ready. The duel was brief but intense. Jaren did not fight with rage. He fought with logic, skill, and restraint. Each move was calculated to disarm and disable, not to harm unnecessarily. Within moments, the intruder was captured, immobilized without a scratch. Lyra descended to the courtyard after the incident, her heart still racing. I cannot believe what I just saw, she said. Her voice trembled with a mix of fear and awe. You handled him so. Perfectly. Not a single life was lost. Jaren helped a guard untie the assassin. Every life matters, he said simply. Even in enemies. We cannot secure peace by destroying all who oppose us. We secure peace by showing strength and discipline. That is the difference. Lyra studied him closely. She had married a human to create a political alliance, yet she had found herself in the presence of someone whose principles and abilities exceeded anything she had expected. Jaren was not just a warrior. He was a protector, a strategist, and a moral guide. The next day, the rival factions escalated their attacks. This time, it was not a single assassin or a small skirmish. It was a coordinated strike against multiple settlements on the city's borders. Lyra and Jaren convened with the council, analyzing reports and mapping potential threats. We cannot defend every settlement at once, the council argued. The attackers are too numerous, too organized. We risk losing many if we try. Jaren shook his head, his expression calm but firm. We do not abandon our people. We prioritize and adapt. Strategy is not about numbers alone. It is about using what we have most effectively. I will lead the defenses where they are needed most. Lyra, you will oversee communications and ensure the civilians remain safe. Lyra nodded, impressed by his clarity. Unlike many commanders she had met, Jaren did not panic under pressure. He assessed the situation logically, made a plan, and gave precise instructions. She realized that this human's mind worked in ways her people had rarely seen. The battle began at dawn. Jaren moved swiftly between points of conflict, directing soldiers, fortifying defenses, and setting up ambushes that slowed the enemy. He combined human tactics with Velithian technology, creating strategies that confused the attackers and minimized losses. Lyra watched from the palace balcony, her heart swelling with both fear and pride. Jaren's skill was extraordinary. He could anticipate enemy movements, coordinate reinforcements, and make split-second decisions that turned the tide of battle. Soldiers who had been unsure and hesitant now fought with confidence, inspired by his presence. At one point, a group of enemy fighters attempted to infiltrate a residential area. Jaren arrived just in time, moving with incredible speed to intercept them. He disarmed their weapons, guided civilians to safety, and neutralized the threat without a single unnecessary injury. Lyra could barely follow his movements. They were faster than the eye could track, yet precise, almost elegant in their execution. By midday, the attackers were in disarray. Jaren's combination of strategy, skill, and leadership had turned what could have been a devastating loss into a controlled victory. The city was safe, and the rival factions were forced to retreat. When the battle ended, Lyra approached him, her mind racing. I do not understand how you do it, she admitted. Your skill, your control, it is beyond anything I have ever seen. You fought like a god of war, yet you were calm, precise, and humane. Jaren shook his head modestly. It is not godlike, he said quietly. It is preparation, experience, and the choice to act with purpose. I do not fight for glory. I fight for life, for those who cannot protect themselves. That is all. Lyra looked at him, her admiration growing. She had married him to secure peace, but she realized that he was far more than a political ally. He was the embodiment of human potential, a combination of courage, intelligence, and moral strength that inspired everyone around him. The following weeks were filled with challenges. Rival factions continued to test the alliance, sending spies, provocateurs, and small raiding parties. Each time, Jaren responded with calm efficiency. He taught Velithian soldiers new techniques, improved defensive strategies, and emphasized intelligence over brute force. Lyra observed everything, learning not just from his actions but from the way he thought. One evening, as the sun set over the city, Lyra and Jaren walked together through the palace gardens. You have changed everything here, she said softly. The people trust us. The soldiers respect you, even I. I find myself looking at humans differently now. Jaren glanced at her, his expression thoughtful. Humans are young in the galaxy, yes, but we are adaptable. We learn, we improve, and we fight for what we believe is right. You married me for peace, Lyra. But I'm not here to take control. I am here to support your people, to help you protect them. Lyra smiled faintly. I never expected to feel respect, admiration, even gratitude for a human. Yet here I am. You are unlike anyone I have ever met. Jaren returned the smile, though it was quiet and understated. And you are a remarkable leader. Your people are lucky to have you. I only hope I can help them as much as you hope I can. That night, Lyra reflected on everything she had witnessed. She had married a human for political reasons, expecting duty and formality. Instead, she had found someone who embodied courage, wisdom, and honor. His actions were not just physical feats. They were lessons in leadership, morality, and the power of human potential. She realized that Jaren's presence did more than secure peace. It inspired confidence, unity, and hope. Her people were beginning to see a future where war might end, where courage and strategy could triumph over chaos. And in the center of it all was this human, standing as both protector and symbol of what humans could achieve. For the first time, Lyra felt a spark of something she had not expected: genuine trust, admiration, and perhaps even the beginnings of personal connection. She reminded herself that her marriage was still political, that she could not let emotions cloud her judgment, yet she could not ignore the truth. Jaren had changed everything, not just on the battlefield, but in her heart and in the lives of everyone around her. As she looked out over the city that night, Lyra whispered quietly to herself, perhaps humans are not just allies. Perhaps they are the key to a future we never thought possible. And somewhere nearby, Jaren planned the next steps for defense and strategy, unaware that in the quiet of the night, the princess he had married was beginning to see him not just as a human, but as a force that could inspire and protect entire civilizations. The city slept under the stars, safe for now, yet the storm of challenges was far from over. Lyra knew that more tests awaited them, but she also knew that with Jaren by her side, they could face whatever came next. The morning air over Zirath was tense and heavy with anticipation. Word had spread that a large-scale attack by rival factions was imminent. Unlike the previous skirmishes, this assault would target the capital itself. Soldiers and civilians alike prepared for the worst, reinforcing barricades, stockpiling supplies, and praying for survival. Princess Lyra walked among them, observing quietly. Her heart was heavy with responsibility, but she felt a quiet confidence as she glanced toward Jaren. He stood at the center of the main courtyard, studying maps, issuing orders, and moving with the calm authority of someone who had faced far worse than this. His presence alone brought order to what could have been panic. The council approached her nervously. "Princess," one of them said, "the enemy is vast. We have never faced such numbers. Even with Jaren, the city may not withstand the assault." Lyra shook her head. "We will stand, we must. Jaren has proven himself and our people trust him. That trust is stronger than fear. We will fight strategically, not recklessly." Jaren's voice cut through the courtyard, steady and commanding. "Listen carefully. The enemy believes they can overwhelm us through sheer numbers. They are wrong. We will use our knowledge of the terrain, our technology, and coordinated strategy to protect every life we can. Civilians will be evacuated along safe routes. Soldiers will hold key positions. We act as one or we fall as one. There is no other way." Lyra watched him, astonished at how naturally he commanded respect. Even the most skeptical Velithian generals followed his instructions without question. The human had a rare gift, the ability to unite and inspire, even in the face of overwhelming danger. As the first wave of enemy forces approached, the city gates shook under the weight of armored vehicles and advanced weaponry. The attackers had learned from previous failures, coordinating their efforts to exploit weak points. But Jaren was ready. He had anticipated their movements, positioning soldiers at strategic choke points, setting traps, and organizing defensive formations that maximized efficiency while minimizing risk. Lyra moved to the palace balcony to observe the battle. From above, she could see the chaos, the clash of metal, the flash of energy weapons, and the disciplined Velithian soldiers responding to Jaren's commands. He moved among them with astonishing speed, giving instructions, directing fire, and personally intercepting threats when necessary. At one point, a group of enemy soldiers tried to bypass the gates and infiltrate a residential area. Jaren was there before they could reach it. He disarmed them with swift, precise movements, guiding the civilians to safety and neutralizing the threat without causing unnecessary harm. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. She had never seen anyone fight with such skill and yet such restraint. The city defenders began to gain the upper hand, their confidence buoyed by Jaren's calm and strategic brilliance. Soldiers who had once been uncertain now moved with precision, anticipating enemy tactics and responding effectively. Lyra realized that Jaren's influence extended beyond his physical abilities. He had taught them to think, adapt, and act with clarity under pressure. Hours passed, and the battle intensified. Enemy reinforcements arrived, pushing the city's defenses to their limits. Jaren adjusted constantly, analyzing the battlefield in real time, redirecting forces and setting new traps. He combined human ingenuity with Velithian technology, creating strategies that the enemy could not predict. Lyra could see the exhaustion on the faces of her soldiers, but she also saw determination. They were inspired by the human who fought not for glory, but for the survival of all. Every move he made demonstrated intelligence, courage, and selflessness. During the height of the battle, the enemy commander, a ruthless tactician known for cruelty, emerged to personally challenge the city's defense. Lyra watched as Jaren stepped forward to meet him, the two leaders facing each other across the battlefield. The duel was unlike anything Lyra had witnessed. Jaren did not rely on sheer strength alone. He anticipated every move, countered with precision, and used the environment to his advantage. Each strike, each maneuver was calculated, almost as if he could see the commander's intentions before they occurred. The Velithian soldiers cheered as Jaren disarmed the enemy commander and forced him to retreat, effectively ending the assault. The city had survived not through luck but through skill, strategy, and the unwavering courage of a human who refused to accept defeat. When the battle was over, Lyra descended into the streets. She saw soldiers tending to the wounded, civilians comforting each other, and the city beginning the slow process of recovery. And at the center of it all was Jaren, still calm, still assessing the situation, still guiding and protecting. She approached him quietly. I cannot express what I feel," she said, her voice trembling. "You fought like a god of war, yet with wisdom and restraint. You protected everyone without seeking glory. I have never seen anything like it." Jaren shook his head, modest as ever. "I fight not for glory, princess. I fight so that your people may live, so that peace may have a chance. That is all." Lyra studied him, admiration and awe welling up inside her. She had married him for political reasons, but she now realized that he was far more than a mere ally. He was a protector, a leader, and a symbol of hope for her people. Over the next few days, Jaren worked tirelessly to rebuild the city's defenses. He organized training for soldiers, developed new strategies, and personally inspected every part of the city to ensure safety. Lyra accompanied him whenever she could, learning from his decisions and observing how he inspired those around him. One afternoon, as they walked through the palace gardens, Lyra spoke softly. "You have changed everything, Jaren. The city, the soldiers, the people. Even I see things differently now. I never expected a human to have this impact." Jaren glanced at her, his expression calm but thoughtful. "Humans are young in the galaxy, yes, but we are adaptable and we fight for what is right. I am only here to help your people survive and thrive. That is all." Lyra smiled faintly. "I did not expect to feel admiration, trust, even gratitude. Yet here I am. You have shown us what courage, intelligence, and honor look like." The city's recovery continued under their combined leadership. Soldiers moved with precision. Citizens felt safe, and the alliance between humans and Velithians strengthened. Lyra realized that Jaren's influence extended far beyond battle. He had changed the mindset of the city itself. People began to see the possibility of lasting peace, inspired by the actions of the human who fought not for power, but for life. As the sun set over the city, Lyra looked out over Xyrath and reflected on everything that had happened. She had married a human for the sake of peace, expecting a formal alliance, perhaps even a distant partnership. Instead, she had found someone whose courage, intelligence, and moral strength exceeded anything she had imagined. Jaren had proven that humans, though young in the galaxy, were capable of extraordinary things. His presence inspired confidence, unity, and hope. Lyra understood that peace was not simply a matter of treaties or diplomacy. It was built on courage, skill, and the willingness to act for what is right. For the first time, Lyra allowed herself to hope. She saw a future where her people could live without fear, where courage and strategy could triumph over chaos, and where humans might play a vital role in shaping the destiny of civilizations. And as she watched Jaren oversee the rebuilding efforts, she realized that their marriage, once purely political, had become something far more powerful. It was a partnership of respect, trust, and shared purpose. Together, they had faced impossible odds, and together, they would face whatever challenges awaited them next. The city slept under the stars, safe for now, yet the shadow of future battles lingered. Lyra knew that the tests of loyalty, courage, and strength were far from over. But with Jaren at her side, she felt ready to meet anything. She whispered quietly to herself, "We are stronger together than I ever imagined." And somewhere nearby, Jaren was already planning the next steps, unaware that the princess he had married was beginning to see him not just as a human ally, but as a symbol of hope, courage, and the extraordinary potential of humanity itself. The morning after the Great Siege, the city of Zirath was quiet but alive with activity. Soldiers patrolled the streets, civilians returned to their routines, and repairs began on buildings damaged during the battle. The shadow of war had lifted, leaving behind the promise of peace. Princess Lyra walked through the streets, observing the faces of her people. For the first time in years, she saw genuine hope reflected in their eyes. The streets were not just filled with cautious survivors, they were alive with confidence, curiosity, and relief. Children laughed as they played near rebuilt fountains, merchants reopened their stalls, and the citizens greeted soldiers and guards with trust rather than fear. Lyra's gaze turned toward the palace courtyard, where Jaren was overseeing the reconstruction of the city's defenses. Even in the aftermath of battle, he moved with calm authority, guiding soldiers and citizens alike. There was no haste, no anger, no impatience, only steady focus and the determination to protect and improve the lives of everyone around him. She approached him, stepping lightly on the cobblestones. "The city has never felt this alive," she said softly. "Your presence has changed everything. You have taught our people courage, wisdom, and hope. I cannot imagine what we would have done without you." Jaren turned to her, his calm expression showing the faintest hint of a smile. "You are giving me too much credit, Princess. I only guided, taught, and protected where I could. Your people had the courage to follow and survive. I simply helped them see it." Lyra studied him, realizing the truth in his words. Yet she also knew that it took more than guidance to achieve what he had. His actions had inspired an entire city to act with unity and confidence, even in the face of overwhelming danger. In that moment, she saw clearly what she had felt for weeks: admiration, respect, and a profound sense of partnership that went beyond politics. "Perhaps it is not just your skill in battle," she said, her voice thoughtful, "but the way you lead. You do not command through fear or strength alone. You inspire. You make people want to follow you, to trust in themselves, and to act with courage." Jaren's eyes softened. Leadership is not about power or recognition. It is about responsibility. We fight not for glory, but to protect what is important. Your people, your city, your values, they are worth protecting. That is all I have ever sought to do. The palace gates opened as soldiers and citizens came forward, bringing gifts of gratitude, handcrafted tools, artwork, and even fresh flowers. They knelt before Lyra and Jaren, not in fear but in respect and genuine admiration. Lyra felt a swell of pride in her chest. Peace had been secured not by treaties alone, but through courage, wisdom, and the example set by one human who refused to be ordinary. In the days that followed, Lyra and Jaren worked together to strengthen the alliance between humans and Velithians. Trade routes were restored, settlements rebuilt, and new defensive strategies implemented to ensure that the city would remain safe in the future. Their partnership became a symbol of what could be achieved when two worlds united with trust, respect, and shared purpose. One afternoon, as they walked through a newly rebuilt park, Lyra spoke softly. "I never imagined that marriage could become more than duty," she admitted. "I thought it would be formal, political, and distant. But you have shown me another path, one of partnership, respect, and trust." Jaren glanced at her, his expression calm yet thoughtful. "I married you to secure peace for your people, Princess. That was my duty. But I've come to see that our partnership, our alliance, can become more. not just for politics, but for something greater: mutual respect, understanding, and shared purpose. That is what makes true strength. Lyra felt her heart quicken. She realized that the bond they shared had grown far beyond strategy and battle. It had become personal. She trusted him not only with her city, but with her thoughts, hopes, and even fears. She admired him not just for his skill in combat, but for his moral strength, his intelligence, and his unwavering sense of responsibility. The city soon held a celebration to honor those who had defended Xyrath and helped secure peace. Citizens, soldiers, and diplomats gathered, and Lyra and Jaren stood together before them. The event was not just ceremonial. It was a testament to what could be achieved when courage, strategy, and partnership combined. Lyra spoke to the crowd, her voice steady and filled with conviction. Today we celebrate not just victory, but the courage, intelligence, and unity that made it possible. This city stands because of the bravery of its people, and because one human chose to stand with us not for power, but for life itself. Let this be a lesson for all of us. Strength comes from wisdom, courage, and the will to protect what is right. The citizens cheered, and Lyra turned to Jaren, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. "You have changed everything," she said softly. "You have not only protected my people, but you have shown us what humans can achieve, what courage, intelligence, and honor truly look like." Jaren's calm smile was steady. "Humans are capable of great things, yes, but it is not just about us. It is about choosing to act, to protect, and to inspire. You led as much as I did, Princess. Your courage and vision made this possible." Over the next weeks, life in Xyrath began to settle into a new rhythm. The city thrived under the joint leadership of Lyra and Jaren. Citizens walked freely without fear, trade flourished, and soldiers trained not just in combat, but in strategy, leadership, and critical thinking. Jaren's influence had extended far beyond the battlefield, shaping an entire civilization to believe in its own strength and potential. One quiet evening, as the sun set over the city, Lyra and Jaren stood together on the palace balcony, watching the light fade into the horizon. The sky glowed with colors of hope: golden, violet, and soft pink, and for the first time in her life, Lyra felt a true sense of peace. "You have shown me what humans can be," she said quietly. "Not just warriors, but leaders, thinkers, and protectors. You have inspired my people, my soldiers, even me. I did not expect that a marriage for duty could lead to this." Jaren's gaze met hers, steady and unwavering. "Humans are young in the galaxy, but we have potential. Courage, intelligence, and honor are not limited by species. They are choices we make every day, and I have chosen to stand with your people, Princess, because it is right. That choice changes everything." Lyra smiled, a warmth spreading through her chest. "And I choose to trust you, not just as an ally, but as a partner. Together we can continue to build a future worth protecting." He nodded, a silent agreement passing between them. There was no need for formal vows, no need for grand promises. Their actions had spoken louder than words ever could. Together they had faced impossible odds, inspired a city, and secured peace. Their partnership was no longer political. It was a bond of respect, trust, and shared purpose. As the stars emerged in the night sky, Lyra felt a sense of hope she had never known. The battles were over, the city was safe, and the people were thriving. But beyond all that, she had discovered the extraordinary potential of humanity in the form of the human she had married. She realized that strength was not just measured in power or skill, it was measured in courage, wisdom, and the willingness to act for what is right. And in Jaren, she had witnessed all of these qualities embodied perfectly. In the quiet of the palace, Lyra reflected on the journey they had shared. From a marriage born of necessity to a partnership built on trust and admiration, their story had become something far greater than either of them could have imagined. They had faced fear, danger, and uncertainty, and together they had emerged victorious, stronger, and wiser. The city slept under the watchful eyes of its guardians, safe and secure. Lyra knew that challenges would come again. Peace was never permanent, but she also knew that with Jaren by her side, they could face anything. His skill, courage, and wisdom were unmatched, and together, they could inspire not just Xyrath, but the entire galaxy. Lyra turned to him one last time that night. "Thank you, Jaren, for everything. For your courage, your wisdom, and your dedication. You have changed not only this city, but my life. Jaren's calm smile met hers. And you have shown me that leadership, vision, and compassion can change the world. Together, we have accomplished something extraordinary, and together, we will continue to protect and inspire. Under the stars, the human and the princess stood side by side, their partnership a symbol of hope, courage, and the extraordinary potential of humanity. What had begun as a marriage for peace had become a story of trust, respect, and the power to change the destiny of civilizations. And in that moment, Lyra knew without doubt that humans, though young and often underestimated, could achieve greatness. And with Jaren by her side, she had witnessed the living proof of it. The galaxy had seen a union not of convenience, but of courage, wisdom, and honor. And for the first time, Lyra allowed herself to dream freely of a future where peace, strength, and humanity's extraordinary potential could shine across worlds.